Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's Brooke Fremouw, certified trauma support specialist and adoptive parent to 11 kids. And today I want to introduce you to one of my very special clients, a family, another adoptive family, Jessica and Randy, who have known me now for quite some time. So say hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
All right. So let's start off by what in the world was going on in your adoptive home that brought you to the point of, listen, I can't even use insurance services. Like, we're so desperate, we're actually going to pay cash and like hire this crazy lady, Brooke. How bad was it? What were the dynamics in your household?
Well, it was definitely despair. We had gone through, just so much. We didn't see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And so we were willing to we tried spanking, timeouts. Mm-hmm. None of that worked. Didn't do anything.
Yeah. How many kids do you guys have?
So we have 4 kids total. One of them is adopted. We have 3 sons and 1 daughter. Our adopted son came to us. He's sort of sandwiched in between our kids. So he's not the youngest, he's not the oldest. We sort of fell into adoption. We had never planned to adopt. It wasn't something that we were seeking out, not that matters. But we were just unprepared is the point I'm making. We didn't know anything. I didn't understand trauma. I was one of those people who thought, if he can't remember it, how could he be traumatized, right? He's so little. Oh, how lucky, people would say, how lucky you are. You got him when he was 17 months old. And so he won't remember any of the, terrible things that he was put through. And that couldn't be further from the truth.
Yeah. Your body remembers even when your brain does not, right? And that's a big part of where we started, was just understanding the way that it fundamentally changed his body. And one of the things, Jessica, that just really connected me to you in this process was the level to which you were hurting. Like, you were a very hurting mom, and I had been a very hurting mom, 12 years prior to meeting you. Tell me what that was like for you.
So I was crying. I cried every single day. I wished desperately to go back to a time when our life was simple, where I understood how to parent. I had successfully parented 2 kids, up until that point, and nothing worked. I tried being patient. We tried, timeouts, like Randy said, spanking, which we had no idea how far off base we were in parenting. I was in such a dark place that I remember I had seen something, I think on Facebook, and I had seen it months prior. And we would sort of yo-yo in between this, oh, I think he's okay, and then it's really bad.
Yeah.
So we would have it would level off a tiny bit.
It was just
to take the edge off.
Grasping at straws, we're like, oh, finally a little bit of relief, and then boom, right back down.
And maybe even
despair.
worse.
Yeah.
And so I remember one day I had asked Randy, this lady, she posts stuff. I don't know, maybe she can help us. We had no idea who you were, really. We were to the point where this lady said she maybe can help. And I reached out to you, and it didn't matter, to be honest, that day what number you would have said to us.
Yep.
We had in our hearts said, we can't continue like this. I mean, I felt broken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember those calls early on when we were communicating and starting the process of deepening your understanding in your son's needs and the reasons, right? The mechanisms that drove the behavior, and the fact that you guys were always parenting to the behavior and not the mechanism.
Right.
And call after call, you would just crumble. And Randy, to watch you watch your wife right? Like as a husband, when your family is just stuck in a pain cycle and you've got to leave and go to work and know that it's not going to be okay. Like, I can't imagine what that's like as a husband. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. That was my biggest, my biggest hurdle was thankfully she could call me at work anytime and I could talk to her, but it was so hard because there's nothing I could do to fix it. And as a husband, all you want to do is make your wife's life that much easier for her. Yeah. And it was definitely tough. And that was a major hurdle for us, were the phone calls.
Yeah.
Sometimes it got to me to where I couldn't handle the phone calls sometime. But we, you kind of put that aside and just learn to listen to your wife. And that was that was about the only thing that I could do, because I wasn't home. I could just listen to her and let her just vent.
Yeah.
Or cry.
Or usually crying.
I cried so much in those times. And I remember, I just remember when we were a little bit deeper into it, nobody understood.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk to friends, and there were people who wanted to understand. I mean, they had all the empathy in the world for what we were going through, but they didn't get it and they couldn't help. And then when we found you, you were like our lifeline almost. You were the one person who got it. You made yourself available, morning, noon, and night to whatever we need. And I needed it more than I think I could even understand. Looking back is almost scarier than being in it, because I was so deep in it that I didn't even understand the depths of it. You know what I mean? I do.
Yes.
Looking back, it's almost like, that was scary.
Yeah.
It was a scary time.
Yeah.
It was dark. It was scary.
I know what the behaviors were. I know how extreme it was, the physical violence and the level to which the dysfunction grabbed a hold of your son. The maladaptive skill sets were so deeply rooted in him. But can you just give us like a screenshot of like what those behaviors were that had you feeling like, holy cow, we are so broken. There's no coming back from this. I am stuck.
So, I mean, I think I took the brunt of the physical abuse, but it was headbutting, hitting, kicking, scratching, biting, spitting, throwing things at me, throwing things at my head, hurting his sister. If he couldn't hurt us, he would go for her because she's an easy target.
Younger.
Yeah, she's younger. So she was, the easy target. And that's his trigger.
Don't you hurt my babies.
No, I mean, he's just a very big protector of women and girls. And so our boys are raised to protect women and girls. They're not to hurt. And so it was that. And then it was also sort of the shame and guilt in, what did we bring into our house for the other kids?
Yeah. The ripple effect, right?
They're watching their mom and dad be physically hit, kicked, scratched, anything.
Yeah.
And the screaming, I mean, that would pierce your ears.
Yeah.
You haven't heard that in a while, huh?
No, I mean,
they forgot about it.
It was, gosh, I ever forgot that. He could scream so loud, it would like hurt my ears. And I'd wonder, well, the neighbors are calling the cops, that's for sure.
Right. Looks like child abuse, but the reality is he's abusing us.
Yeah. Right. And so, and just sort of, I could see resentment building amongst siblings a bit for him, because they want to protect their mom.
Yeah. And we identified that as secondary trauma, right? Your kids were receiving both primary and secondary trauma from their own brother as they engaged in their household, and everybody's roles got defined and redefined, right? Yeah. Brutal season. I'm so thankful that you did reach out and we set a new motion, and really, I call it hitting a reset, right? Like, okay, from this day forward, this is the way we engage with this child. We are no longer going to allow him to be in control of this household. And the one thing that I know, as sure as I know, the most important thing for all adopted children, bar none, adoption trauma creates a desperate need. And when I say desperate need, I mean that. Not an opinion, not like a casual, oh, we all want to be in charge of our lives. No, it is a desperate, they believe their very life depends on it, need for control. So when I say, boop, reset, we have to teach him to surrender.
Right.
What a process.
Yeah.
Right. You're laughing because you're like, oh my word. Yeah, that was a process, Brooke. That was a process. So part of what I've loved is being able to, with some of the newer journey families, being able to say, yeah, you really should talk to Jessica. Because your son, I have to say, again, I've worked with so many families at this point. I don't know the number, but so many families. And your son had a really fundamental dig in that he was like, you will not break me. You will not break me. And what you were breaking him with was love.
Yeah.
Right? Like you weren't breaking him with all the methods that had been used dysfunctionally to try and break him when he was being abused. This was like, hey, listen, you have no choice but to accept my love. And in that, you will surrender. So it's done in such a compassionate, loving way, but their level of resistance, because it does mean surrender.
Right.
Like your son was a rarity, like the level, right? And tell me about that, because I remember getting those messages on Messenger where you're like, is this really going to work, Brooke?
Yeah.
Now, I'm not so sure.
Yeah. So it would be, he'd have to go to Safe Spot to work out his feelings. We were like, we'd have to hold him down, stand there, ignore him.
Well, he was trying hours long.
He was trying everything he could to gain that control in the form of maybe he's trying to hit the wall, but there's nothing you could do to it, or, scream or anything like that. And it's really, if he's in a safe spot, he's got to learn to work out those feelings. And they would be, hours long.
And multiple times a day.
I
think that was the point where we gave it 100%, because it was either that or I don't know what.
Yeah.
We were all going to go crazy, but that was the point where we were really out on a limb there, because for a bit I thought, is he going to turn a corner? Right? I couldn't tell. I remember I spoke to another member of the journey group, and she had said, well, it was after 2 weeks. And I'm like, that's all it took you guys, was 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that had been a long time for them. And it's a long time, anytime.
It feels like eternity, right?
Right. Yeah. So I remember thinking, okay, and it would show up in the smallest ways at first.
Yeah.
And we were calling them wins, because they were wins, but they were tiny at first.
Yeah.
And then they added and added and added. And before you know it, we were like, wait, he didn't go to Safe Spot today. Or in the beginning, it was like, oh, we only did 1 2-hour Safe Spot. It was, and before you know it, it
was light at the end of the tunnel.
We were starting to see it.
Even if it was dim, we could see it.
Yeah.
Because we were so desperate for change.
Yeah.
Right.
We saw it.
Yeah.
I didn't think
truly a miracle.
And I didn't think that we would have a time where we would go weeks without a physical touch, like without a hit, and then when he, sometimes I'd go, well, Brooke, that changed, but now we're doing this. And you go, okay, all right, well, that's a different one. Now we're going to do this.
Yeah.
And we would just go, he would test us each time.
So I call those pivots, right? And that's why it's so important that there's an actual system, that this is not just like, oh, you can read a book and this is going to work. I could never write a book, and teach the strategies, because at the end of the day, we are raising kids that are survivors,
Right.
that literally believe that they need to be in charge in order to exist. And so when you start to strip off that control and then they realize it's happening, especially yours was a tinier dude, right? Like we're dealing with the under fives. And those guys are like, ooh, there's some benefit to this. And ooh, there's some connection. And oh, wait a minute, I lost control. Right. And so it's like a ping pong in and out of that to some extent. And then their skill sets is like, wait, what's going to happen if I try this? I never tried this strategy.
Yeah.
And so we have to take the same system, but look at it and go, what pivot can we put in place to redirect him back into the surrender? And you guys had to navigate that over and over again. And I certainly, for those that are like, wow, this is crazy, but I could never hold my child in safe spot. I could never, right? They just punched the lights out of me. It is a different ball game for different ages, right? And for different circumstances. And certainly we would never want to put you in the line of fire to where anybody was dangerous. Or if your son was punching a wall and going to hurt himself or the wall,
Right.
we would look at that different and go, okay, that's not working. Where should we move safe spot to? Because the number one priority is always safety for everybody involved. And your son was never in a dangerous or neglected situation. It was, hey, listen, when you are in control of your body, you get to engage in relationship and life. And when you are not in control of your body, there is a safe place for you to go until you've worked through that. And then it's also giving skill sets for what that means. But no child's going to choose those unless there's motivation to do it and they see a benefit in it, right? So first we have to motivate them. Then they have to see the benefit in order to reinforce that behavior cycle. And as your son was doing that, one of the cutest things he ever did, do you remember the story of him teaching?
Yes.
Share that. It is just so cute.
Well, okay. So we would be in safe spot, and I was wondering, like, is he not getting it? Like, is he too little for this? Maybe he doesn't understand it because he was quite young. And so he knows Miss Brooke. Mm-hmm. So sometimes he would kind of creep in and he'd talk to Miss Brooke sometimes. And we had very specific, our dragon breathing and the porcupine the porcupine. And so one day we switched to safe spot a few times, but at that time, I think his safe spot was a pack and play. And he went and put his dragon in safe spot and was doing his dragon breathing with his dragon, but he couldn't do it. And I was like, okay, so I remember telling you that, and you're like, that's a good sign. Like, he's getting it. Yep. It's just a matter of the surrender at that point. We had to wait him out.
Yep. And remaining consistent, right? And taking your power back and saying, hey, listen, you can choose to have a good day or a bad day. I'm going to be okay either way. Yes. I'm going to choose as a mom to have a good day and not give you the power to decide that for me. Right. That is a lot of power for a little person to have, to decide the entire dynamics for a household. No human should be that powerful to make that choice for you and your husband and all of the rest of your children. So tell me now, what is it like? You guys have been on the other side of these skill sets. You've actually created some pivots of your own along the way and are functioning pretty independent at this point, and just a source of encouragement to so many other adoptive families. What does it look like now in relationship with your son and your other kids? And I mean, look at the smiles on your guys' face. There's no tears. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
I mean, now we are in probably the best spot we've ever been in as a family. Mm-hmm. He's in school. He's learning, which is something that trauma was blocking so severely. Yeah. He wasn't capable of like grasping things. He's doing phenomenally in school, which makes my mama heart so happy. Yeah. Being with you and the time that we spent with you, it changed not just our family at that time. I think it changed us forever. Mm-hmm. I had shared with you recently that I can sort of look back at the situation more clearly now. And at that time, I was desperate to go back. I was clinging to a life that I didn't have anymore, that didn't exist for me.
Yeah.
And I so desperately wanted to find the path back there to this safe spot for me, this comfort that I had experienced. And I realized after some time that the direction of our life, it was never back. We had to make a new path, and we made that new path with you and with all these things and with our kids now. And it's honestly changed our life. That's not an understatement. It's changed our life forever.
Yeah.
It changed the way that we parent all of our kids for the better. And we have peace. I mean, our life isn't perfect, obviously.
He's not perfect. We're not.
He's not perfect. We're not perfect. But
I would describe it as hope, like just hope for the future. Hope for
sure.
whatever's to come, whatever he might have to struggle with.
Yeah.
It's hope.
I had been so fearful for so long about what does his life look like?
Yeah.
And I don't live in that place of fear anymore.
Yeah.
But it took all of this. I think that I never thought that I would be able to say with a straight face that the place we are in now is the place I would want to be. And I can say that now and mean it. I used to not want to be in this place. I used to think, selfishly, like, what if, the what ifs. And it was a really tough place to be, but God brought us through. He gave us you, and you gave us so many tools. And then you're still here. We're still chatting.
Yeah. No, that's part of the thing, is that I think you had mentioned the isolation of people who are well-intended and fully empathetic, and they want to help. And yet, if you're not in the battlefield and you don't understand it, even so many of the therapists, psychologists, I mean, a world that does not understand trauma-informed care specific to the needs of our children, because it is it's a family dynamic issue. The mom is a trigger, bar none, in every single one of these. And so this child faces their trigger every single day. And then the child becomes the mom's trigger too, right? Because how do you hug a porcupine, right? Their quills are up. They are not a safe child. And yet you are charged to raise the person who's abusing you.
Yeah.
Ouch. It's brutal.
And love them and give everything to them. I think that was always this place I was in.
But how am I going to do this? Yeah.
Right. It was the support that you offered me one-on-one. I mean, we had our times together, and I think most of the time I would just spend talking and crying with you. Aww. But you were a safe place. And we
have a community, right? I loved that you hopped on to the Q&A the other day. And of course, in all of your craziness with all of your kids, not unlike so many of our families as adoptive homes, but you had like 15 minutes and you didn't want to miss it. Because what's happened now is that we are a community for each other. We are that rare hub of people that love the Lord, love our kids, understand the depth of the pain, and can come together without judgment.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, I've been there. I've made those same mistakes. Don't walk in that shame. Set that down. Like, it takes a village to raise a typical child.
Yeah.
So what does it take to raise our kids that have circumstances that they should have never had in their entire lifetime, let alone in their little world with their, lack of maturity and lack of stability that you and I, as parents, have. So we have unique circumstances and unique experiences, and to be able to come together and encourage each other through the battles, not just like while you're in it. Praise the Lord, you're in a great season with your family. And I pray that season has equipped him to sit and surrender for a long period of time, but puberty will come. Complex reasoning skills will kick in to where he starts to really question some identity issues. And why were those first 17 months what they were? And what does that mean for who he's going to choose to be as an adult? And as a tribe, you never lose this, Jess, right? Like I'm with you, not today, not tomorrow. I'm with you until, and it's going to be incredible, because one day you're going to have wedding photos of your son and the grandkids, right? And we're all going to rejoice in the healing that is at hand. And the last thing I want to say is like, tools are only as good as your willingness to use them.
Yeah.
And so you're giving an awful lot of credit to me for being the support that institutes the tools and helps, identify those pivots for you. And those are critical steps. But the reality is that if I give them to you and you aren't committed to the journey of walking your child through this surrender, no matter how hard it is on either side, and trusting in me, trusting in yourself to deal with what comes next, and really jumping all in with those tools, you don't get this outcome. Right. And so the fact that you set aside everything and said, we are all in, is a huge part of what it takes to be successful. And I just want to thank you for doing whatever it took for your family to come back and find that peace that surpasses all understanding and that joy unspeakable, because it's been an absolute blessing to be a part of your journey and to be able to speak those things into your family and to watch you guys, like, seriously, gorgeous family that is just a light. You are a light of inspiration for so many other families that are adoptive and non-adoptive as to, what it can be, what connection can look like. So thank you.
Thank you, Brooke.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are awesome. Thanks again for your time. Hopefully this has been an inspiration to some and provided some hope, because I know that there are dark places where we feel there is none. So thanks again, guys. We appreciate you. And we're going to go ahead and let you actually go eat dinner. Isn't that great?
Yeah. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Talk soon.
Okay, bye-bye.